Thank you for joining us, everybody, for this April 25th, 2021 version of Ask an Ecologist Anything. Today we'll focus on Arctic ice, or the rapidly diminishing feature known as ice in the Arctic Ocean. This is floating ice, so it does not contribute to sea level rise as it melts. I'd like to start, as I always do, by thanking the new members since we last did one of these, which was quite a while ago. We made a cross-country move from Central Florida to Vermont. And Raza Eco Warrior, to answer your question, have you finished all the unpacking? Bet you haven't. You bet correctly. We have not finished all the unpacking. In fact, I don't think there's enough time left in my life to finish all the unpacking, but that's a story for another day. Thanks to the new members, including L, just for the L of it, Dan R. Taylor, Barbara Schlumberger, DCDK, Charlotte R. Dow, Chuck Varga, Cynthia Conaway, Carrie Castanguay, Don Hawkins, and Coffee Dragon. And thanks to David Lutz for making a contribution, a donation already in the live stream. So then, let us roll. I wanted to start with a press release based on a peer-reviewed article. The press release comes from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and it is titled, Scripps Institution of Oceanography Researchers Discover Heat Bombs Destroying Arctic Ice. Researchers recently had a breakthrough in finding the specific mechanism behind the rapid melting of sea ice in the Arctic Ocean. That's the subhead. This came out on Friday, April 23rd, so just a couple of days ago. And here's the really critical feature within this press release. Jennifer McKinnon, a physical oceanographer at Scripps, chief scientist of the expedition and lead author of the paper, says Arctic sea ice could be gone by next year and only develop during the winter months. This is a critically important feature because when the Arctic sea ice disappears for the first time in the history of Homo sapiens, that will trigger a global average temperature rise almost certainly enough to extinguish all life on Earth within a relatively short period of time. Obviously, not the day that we have an ice-free Arctic, but I suspect that if the Arctic ice is all gone next year, 2022, for the first time, then 2023 will, starting in the spring and summer months, we will begin to lose habitat around the world for our species. As a consequence, nuclear power plants will melt down. The extremely rapid rate of environmental change will cause loss of habitat for all life on Earth, including Homo sapiens. The peer-reviewed paper that came out coincident with the press release on Friday, April 23rd, 2021, appeared in Nature Communications and is titled A Warm Jet in a Cold Ocean. Senior author is Jennifer A. McKinnon, M-A-C-K, McKinnon, and she is joined by 28 other authors in publishing this peer-reviewed article, A Warm Jet in a Cold Ocean. And it describes the mechanism by which the Arctic Ocean is heating and will continue to heat in the near future, at least one of the mechanisms. Now I want to go back a little bit to January 15th, 2018. First, I want to reiterate with that quote from senior author Jennifer McKinnon in the press release, Arctic ice could be gone by next year and only develop during the winter months. So she's suggesting that the Arctic ice could be gone as early as next year. That's 2022. And then if that happens in 2023, we will have profound, rapid changes in the environment that will almost certainly cause loss of habitat for our species. And as a result of the very abrupt warming, likely for all species on Earth. Then let's go back to January 15th, 2018, 2 years and about 4 months ago, from Forbes. The title is, "We Have 5 Years to Save Ourselves from Climate Change," Harvard scientist says. The Harvard scientist is James Anderson, a Harvard University professor of atmospheric chemistry, best known for establishing that chlorofluorocarbons were damaging the ozone layer. So quite a renowned professor. And he is quoted in this paper in Forbes as saying, quote, "The chance that there will be any permanent ice left in the Arctic after 2022 is essentially zero," end quote, with 75 to 80% of permanent ice having melted already in the last 35 years. And so it seems that we have consensus, at least a consensus of these two scientists, and in the case of McKinnon, 28 other co-authors and peer reviewers and editors, there seems to be a consensus that we will lose Arctic ice for the first time next year, 2022. The following year will be comprised of rapid loss of habitat throughout the entire world, based on the science that I read. Consider, for example, the peer-reviewed article by Strona and Bradshaw in Scientific Reports, November 2018. Quote, "In a simplified view, the idea of co-extinctions reduces to the obvious conclusion that a consumer cannot survive without its resources." That's the take-home message from this 2018 paper by Strona and Bradshaw. The conclusion of my own paper, "The Role of Conservation Biology in Understanding the Importance of Arctic Sea Ice," published in Earth and Environmental Science Research and Reviews on July 25th, 2020. The conclusion reads like this: "The evidence presented in this paper indicates the strong likelihood of extinction of all life on Earth in the near future. This conclusion, based on the ongoing rapid rate of environmental change, invokes obvious questions, some of which I have mentioned in my earlier writing. How do we minimize suffering? Is such a quest restricted to humans, or are other organisms involved? What is the temporal frame of the quest? Does it extend beyond the moment, perhaps to months or years? Does it extend beyond the personal to include other individuals? What intellectual and emotional responses are expected in light of this knowledge? Which of these responses are acceptable? How shall I respond? How shall we respond as individuals within communities and society?" These are the questions on which I have chosen to focus. I encourage others to join me in my quest to understand and alleviate suffering. I can imagine worse pursuits than the final individuals of our species exhibiting ethical, responsible behavior. So, there's a few papers, an overview of where we are and where we're headed in the not too distant future with respect to financially wealthy people living in bunkers and therefore persisting for an extended period of time. That seems very unlikely to me. If we lose habitat for all members of our species in 2023, as I expect based on these sources I've just provided, then I don't believe there will be a single human being left in 2026, as I've mentioned several times. What about those people in bunkers? What about them? Do you really think people are going to be willing to survive in that sort of environment for an extended period of time? It would surprise me very much if people in bunkers didn't kill themselves or kill each other within a span of a year or two. So I don't really see that as a viable option. In addition, so what? So they come out of their bunker in 6 months or 6 years to find a an Earth depleted of life. You know, I'm not the only person who knows this information. I suspect there are a lot of people who are reasonably well informed who know this information as well. And those are not the people who are going to be going into bunkers and trying to, quote, survive for something resembling an extended period of time. Thank you for putting up with my ongoing ramble. And I'm going to go turn to the chat now and see what I missed. Let's see. Lots of people saying hello. Thank you very much for that.
We have a couple of new people already.
Mm-hmm.
We have Coffee Dragon and Revolution.
Yep. Yes, I thanked Coffee Dragon already, and thank you, Revolution, for joining as a member of the Nature Bass Last channel.
And David Lutz donated.
Mm-hmm.
Did you thank
As I said. Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, Don Peterson points out, but we flew a helicopter on Mars. Yes, we have reached a state of technological prowess that is simply astonishing. And yet, I'll point out that we don't have the flying cars I was promised when I was a kid. We can do amazing things from a variety of perspectives, especially technological. It certainly would be nice if our empathy matched our technological prowess. That'd be something.
So, Coffee Dragon asked a question, what does losing Arctic ice do to plankton? I read that they increase and help atmosphere. That might be answered in the video.
Let's watch the videos. Let's go there. I get to rattling on and I almost forget what the point is.
We have two videos.
Okay, so let's watch a couple of videos. The first of them was sent by my longtime supporter and online acquaintance, Trent Black. And it points out the difficulties being faced by indigenous peoples already as a result of diminishing Arctic ice. So, let her play. Okay. And thank you, Dan Browner, for joining us as a Knight of NTHE. I appreciate your membership.
And Ozer just joined. Ozer Nima, welcome.
And thank you, Ozer, for joining as well.
All right. I'm going to get... let's see. So tell them to be patient while I get this.
We're getting the show rolling, and Pauline asks for your patience. And by extension, so do I. So hang in there. The first of 2 short videos is headed our way. Just need to get that up on the screen and rolling so that everybody can see it.
Since time immemorial, that's when the polar ice used to reach us. Guluzik, the mother ice. Guluzik was the one that set the winter, and it brought with it abundance of whales, seals, marine mammals.
I started going out in the ocean with my dad about 6 or 7 years old. We couldn't wait to go out to be with the elder men and base the ocean.
My dad taught me how to hunt and fish when I was a very young boy. He took me away out in the ocean and he taught me how to ugrik hunt. I got scared. I looked up at my dad and he wasn't scared. So I haven't been scared ever since.
We would go out roughly 30 miles out from here, and you can hear walrus from a long way. They have very poor eyesight. You know, they could smell you, so you always went, downwind. In the old days, they'd be hundreds on a piece of ice, you know. I always tried to find one or two that were by themselves. They could be a pretty dangerous animal.
And I felt privileged to be out there with my dad and his brothers to be able to provide for our family and our people. But little did we know this change that was coming.
My life cycle basically begins in January. So in January we have muskox. We also have moose. Then that time of year the crabbing in the ocean starts.
I have fish days, muskox, walrus.
April and May I'm bear hunting. End of May the ducks come. Beginning of June the trout start running in the river and we'll cut 100 trout to put in sea oil. End of June the salmon show up.
Cranberries, blueberries.
In August we'll do 100 to 200 silvers in the smokehouse.
Salmon berries, my rhubarb.
For 9 whole months, 9 whole solid months, the whole of the Bering Sea would be completely locked up. Now we're down to 3.
The ice is coming later and leaving earlier. We probably won't have freeze up maybe till January, but it's still too unsafe to go out on the ice.
The biggest thing I've seen out of this climate change is we have an east wind. East wind is always a warm wind, 30 above, 20 above. East wind brings warm weather. We need that 20, 30 below to create the foundation for us to operate on, the platform.
In the Bering Sea region, sea ice is an extension of the land. It provides a platform for whaling, for travel. It enables them to hunt and to access food in the ocean that would be much more difficult to access otherwise.
And this is the tomcod fishing that happens. But as you can see, there's plenty. Beluga, ogre hunting, one of our elders butchering a caribou.
We've lost over 70% of the entire volume of Arctic sea ice.
Ice used to be like 8 to 10 feet thick. Nowadays it's like 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick.
Chop a hole in the ice and, throw some salmon eggs in there and we pull out trout and whitefish and grayling. But if it's melting a lot earlier, then that opportunity goes away.
We can't venture out on the ice even if it comes up to our island. It's not solid, so we can't risk going out on the ice.
Many communities use shorefast ice for whaling, but they also rely on the pack ice.
Even in mid-March, I'm looking for ice as far out in the ocean as I can go, and that's not normal.
At the Arctic scale, we've lost over 40% of ice extent in the summer.
2,000-pound animal, to try to pull them up on the ice with the 4 guys, it's so much easier to go after them while they're on the ice. It's getting more dangerous to go get them.
Walrus has been our most powerful ally for survival. The tusks were used for tools, hunting, harpoon heads, spear heads, arrowheads, and the skin was used for food. The female walrus skin was used for skin boats.
Half a ton of meat, blubber, and food, and that'll feed a whole village, man.
Our food resource has always been within close proximity to our villages, so that we didn't have to spend a lot of money to go fill our freezers.
What's going to be on the breakfast table tomorrow? In a week's time, will we have enough food to feed our family, to feed our community, to feed our children, our elders?
The other thing that the ice provides is a platform for sea ice algae.
When it forms in the winter, it's like a playground, and a living playground for a lot of the plankton and the zooplankton.
The krill eat the algae, the fish eat the krill, the seals eat the krill, the mers eat the fish.
Without the ice, we're losing all that, and we're starting to see a lot of shorebirds and even some sea mammals start. Just this summer, I counted 20 young baby ugrux from the spring that had started. Our garden is dying.
One thing about the native population is they adapt very well. You know, if the salmon go away, they replace that with something else. And if the ducks aren't coming, they'll find something else. Instead of waiting till May to go hunting, I'm hunting in April and March. I think we're facing a different kind of change that we haven't really seen before. I think, you know, if the crabs go, or if the blue whales go and we don't see them, if the seals don't come back here, how do we adapt? I don't know that we can.
My ancestors say that we've been on that island for over 10,000 years. What is very powerfully painful to me is that as we're losing our age-old way of life, literally melting away, our identity is being lost. But we're still here, we're still who we are.
You're back. And you're back.
Thank you, Mark Costins, for joining as a member. Thanks to David Lutz for the donation for Maple Creamies. I don't even know what that is, but I think it's some sort of ice cream endeavor, so it must be really good. Thanks to Dan Browner. And there was a question in here from Joey that I'm trying to re-find, because you guys are kind of chatty. Oh, Joey asks, if the Arctic goes BOE, Blue Ocean Event, midsummer, do you think we will get a winter refreeze if the water is able to warm for a month or two? Well, it would surprise me, but we're on completely new ground here, even when it's not ground, even when it's ocean, because we have yet to experience an ice-free Arctic in the history of our species. We don't know what comes next. It's very difficult to make predictions or projections based on something that we have no history of. So it all bodes poorly. I think if we get a midsummer blue ocean event instead of a late summer blue ocean event, which is what most people anticipate the first time around. If we get that late summer blue ocean event, say even with 2 weeks left in the summer, then I suspect the following year is when things get really crazy and we lose habitat rapidly for humans all over the planet, and probably for most other species as well. Bear in mind that yes, we've had an ice-free Arctic in the history of this planet, and species survived, obviously. But no, we've never had a rate of environmental change this rapid in the history of this planet that we know of. So this is truly different this time around. The rate of environmental change is the critical factor here that almost nobody will talk about, and that is, without question, the most important ongoing event in the history of our species so far. So I think the very rapid rate of change is what is likely to cause our demise. Will it be this year, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now? We can't say with certainty, but based on the sources I gave when we started this affair, I suspect we're all done for habitat for Homo sapiens all over the planet in 2023, sometime in 2023. I suspect a few people will survive in bunkers for a while, but I don't expect there to be a human being on the planet in 2026. And I'm not happy about presenting that message, by the way. That's just the way I see it. Thank you, Bridget Fitch, for joining as a member of the Nature Bats Last channel. Also, thanks to Charles Lindsay for joining as a member. And
I'm sending you questions
okay.
on your text, so it'll be easy for you to find.
All right. Pauline is sending me questions that will make it easier for me to see your questions, because otherwise I get lost here. More lost than usual.
Are you looking at it?
Kevin Hester, thank you very much for that extremely generous donation. And there's no need to apologize for having not gotten me ice cream in a while. Trust me. A lot of the people in my life wish I would stop eating so much ice cream because of something that's going on around my interior section. Orion asks, will there even be enough viable oxygen at the surface atmosphere when the sociopaths emerge from their bunkers? Well, I don't know, and I think it doesn't really matter, because if there's no other life on Earth, why would you want to come out of your bunker? Why do you want to come out to a lifeless rock going through space? Even if you can breathe, even if you do have an extra can of peaches, that's not the kind of life I'd look forward to. Kevin asks, what do you think about the recent paper showing that abrupt climate change has altered the Earth's tilt? Interestingly, if you go to my long essay, Climate Change Summary, formerly Climate Change Summary and Update, except I realized just a few months ago that I hadn't updated it in years, so I should stop calling it that. So it's called Climate Change Update. I think it's the last paragraph, or next to the last paragraph, that I was pointing out that this was already happening then. I haven't updated that thing since 2016, August 2nd, 2016, I believe it is. So the report came before then. So we've known this for some 5 years, that the Earth's tilt has been changed as a result of abrupt climate change. It's interesting that the corporate media keep trotting out these ancient stories, or stories rooted in evidence that we've known about for a long time. Thank you, Anand.Wani, with apologies for my pronunciation. Thank you for joining as a member of the Nature Bats Last YouTube channel. Orion asks, will there even be enough viable oxygen? I think I already addressed that. Levi, how would you explain tipping points to someone unfamiliar with them? A couple of examples I've been using for years in my public presentations. One, a ball on a table. A ball on a table. A ball on a table that even has a little dip in the table. So that ball can meander around for a long time within a relatively minor change in elevation. It can go up and down a little bit as it climbs up those walls, and minor changes, minor deviations in the table. But if ever it gets pushed off the tables, that's a tipping point. There's no going back. You can't get back up on the table, even if you're a really bouncy ball. So that's a tipping point. Another that I use for self-reinforcing feedback loops is we no longer are in control of what's going on. One could argue that we were never in control of what's going on. And nature or the universe has taken over, that we have set into motion events that no longer allow our interference. So imagine we as a species start pushing a snowball down the hill, and the snowball gets bigger and bigger. It accumulates more snow as it goes, and so it goes faster and increases the momentum greatly. And at some point, and not very far down the hill for the snowball, humans have no actions that matter. You can stand in the way of the snowball, that's just going to get you crushed. You can stay out of the way, the snowball's going to keep going regardless. So there's a couple of sort of silly examples that you might want to use yourself. Let's see. Daniel asks, considering all the various feedback loops already set in motion, might we not see loss of habitat a lot sooner than even 2023? Of course. Of course, anything can happen. I think one of the really major forces that might drive a change in habitat is a collapse or a reduction in industrial activity. And that's why we were creating the regular updates about the stock market. To the extent that the stock market is connected to industrial activity, then a significant decline in the stock markets would suggest a decline in industrial activity. And that could trigger a rapid rise in global average temperature. And that was my point in writing about the coronavirus. We got lucky with respect to the coronavirus in terms of when it happened. The first and third waves occurred during the winter, late fall, winter, early spring in the northern hemisphere, where there's a majority of plants, including crops, and a majority of people as well. So I think we got lucky. And yes, there are several means, as I pointed out in my latest paper at Academia Letters, which you can find on any of the recent blog posts at guymcpherson.com. There are a variety of means by which we could lose habitat. I'm just taking the conservative route and indicating that 2023 seems like the likely time when that could occur as a result of loss of arc, if these predictions and projections play out as they seem to be doing so. Revolution asks, how is our oxygen supply being or will be impacted by all this methane, CO2, etc.? Do you think it is altering our brain chemistry and moreover sanity? I don't know how you'd separate that from what's going on in general, given the sanity of the masses. There is some evidence that if atmospheric oxygen drops below a certain level, and I think it's 18%, but it might be a little higher than that, then that interferes with cognitive function. And I can't remember the exact numbers. It seems that in cities we're already there, and that might explain why the cognitive capacity of various people in cities has been affected negatively. Thank you, Marie Telez, for your generous donation and kind comment. Dan Kinch asked, recent discussion on Quora brought back debate over peak oil. Do you think in NTHE there's any reason to even talk about oil? Should we still be aware of oil peak and the impact it has on the world? Well, I think so, because peak oil and the attendant reduction in industrial activity that is sure to follow at some point, as nearly as I can tell, world oil peaked in 2005 or 2006. That's crude plus condensate only. That's not the crazy stuff like deep water in the ocean and fracking and so on. And so I suspect that already happened. It's out of our control. At what point do we fall off the proverbial cliff when it comes to industrial activity? I don't know. I'm stunned it hasn't happened already. I thought it was going to happen in 2012. I thought it was going to happen in 2009. And it didn't happen. We got lucky. I'm not complaining about that, by the way. But I really think that we were quite fortunate with respect to the continuation of industrial activity in terms of all of our lives for the people watching. Jimmy John asks, would you be willing to go on a climate skeptics channel and discuss climate change? Why? I mean, no. I've been asked that many times. I don't debate flat earthers. I don't debate people who deny ongoing climate change. I don't debate aliens in space, and so on. There's a whole bunch of things that I don't know enough about, and other things that I know way too much about. I debated sort of a climate skeptic in Wyoming years ago, and I'm trying to remember his name. He was with Big Oil. Do you remember his name? Anyway, so you can find that conversation on Pauline's Vimeo channel. In fact, she might look for it right now and put a link up there. Or maybe not, because she claims to be a little busy. Anyway, what's the name of your Vimeo channel?
Pauline Schneider, but it's hard to find.
Okay. It's under the name Pauline Schneider on Vimeo. And this goes back to, I think, 2012 or 2000, no, it must be 2014.
14 or 15, yeah.
2014, I'm pretty sure, in Wyoming. Anyway, Osama question, what do you think about building new nuclear reactors to power the cleanup of the existing reactor sites? No. 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 Let's not make a bigger mess to clean up the existing big mess.
She wouldn't do that.
The camera keeps going off, apparently, which probably improves the view for those of you watching. So, I'm not sure if you heard my response to the question from Osama. I don't think building a potentially bigger mess to clean up the existing mess is a good idea. So let's not do that. Acceptance is a gift. And accepting that your life will end and the lives of all the people around you is one of the biggest gifts you can ever enjoy. Enjoy might be too strong a word for it, but I think you understand what I'm saying. If we don't have long, and we don't, then the time we spend becomes even more valuable. The time we spend with the people around us, with our family, with our friends, with the people we love, and even by ourselves. Scott Andrews asked, didn't indigenous people warn that the position of the sun and stars shifted a couple of years ago? Seems like they're paying closer attention than the rest of us. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if we received warnings from indigenous people, as we have from other people, for many years. And I've documented those warnings in my essay, Extinction Foretold, Extinction Ignored, which you can find on every page at GuyMcPherson.com.
Do you want to see the second video?
I'm going to answer one more question, and then we're going to see the second video. All right. Bell Creek asks, not directly related, I guess, but what do you make out of the horrifying numbers of daily infections in India? I can only say, duh. I've never heard of a pandemic with a fourth wave, but even the corporate media are beginning to talk about the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's not a particular surprise. We didn't take appropriate actions early on during the pandemic. We ignored it. We called it things like a Chinese hoax. So the lunacy of humans sometimes really gets in the way. Where Manny, thank you very much for your donations. And your question, besides money and privilege, why do so many smart people who understand inertia and the exponential function get the subject so wrong in the face of overwhelming, incontrovertible evidence? I don't know. You know, one of the One of the videos that I have already produced and will post sometime within the next week or two at guymcpherson.com is called People Are Stupid. And it addresses that issue, although it doesn't dig very deep. So I would encourage other people to do that. Pauline, can we go to that next video first, though? Thanks to Goran Hellberg, and welcome to the Nature Bats Last channel as a member. And take it away.
Okay, here we go.
Thanks for showing the film, Pauline. That short film was created, I think, by the Scripps Institution of Oceanography to coincide with the peer-reviewed paper, the title of which I gave earlier. Clever title, A Warm Jet in a Cold Ocean, published in Nature Communications, April 23rd, 2021, so just last Friday. So thanks for showing that. And back to the questions. First of all, can't we all just get along? The famous question from, I think, the 80s.
It's from the riots, LA riots.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name.
Richard?
Anyway. Orion asks, so as the situation deteriorates in an accelerating manner, do you imagine there is a point at which you and Pauline will rationalize suicide? I'm not sure I understand the question. Rationalizing suicide for us? For me? For her? For other people? and please clarify, because I would never rationalize suicide for anybody else. That's a personal choice. I think everybody should have the right to take their own life, to end their own life, anytime they want. That said, I was deeply saddened when our dear friend Jeffrey Antonson committed suicide recently. We had planned on hosting him in this home, and he was going to live here until he was able to get into the place he rented just a block away from here on May 1st. So if people are thoughtful, I am non-judgmental about suicide, and I've had an essay posted at Nature Bats Last to that effect, written by Martin Manley, coincident with, and released coincident with his 60th birthday, which is the day he decided to commit suicide. I would strongly encourage everybody watching to read that essay. It's right there on the home page of GuyMcPherson.com. No matter what else you're looking at, it'll show up. And I think it's called Contemplating Suicide. Please read this, or something like that. And it's a long, thoughtful, multi-part essay written by somebody who very clearly thought long and deeply before he committed suicide. How much time, ABCS, how much time does somebody have to look at a nuclear plant explosion? Minutes, hours, days? I suspect it depends upon how close you are. If you're 2 blocks away from the nuclear power plant when it melts down and implodes, then I suspect you have a matter of seconds. Everybody viewing this video right now is still able to study the impacts of Fukushima. That happened March 11th, 2011. So that's been a long time. And we can find all kinds of information online, including video about that event. Same for Chernobyl, which I think was in 1987 or 89. Anyway, I think in the late 1980s. So sometimes we have a long time. Sometimes we have a short time. Some people get hit by a bus and they never know that they're going to die. 2, 3 seconds, 2, 5 minutes, 2, 5 months, and then they're dead. So I would encourage people to keep in mind what Homer said in the Iliad some 2,800 years ago: any moment might be your last. And I've been promulgating that message and encouraging people to live accordingly for really quite a long time. Mm-hmm. Yes, I saw the nuclear one and I responded to it.
Catching up here. Rodney King, that was his name. Thank you, Dan Kinch.
Dan Kinch, thank you for pointing out that it was Rodney King who said, "Why can't we all get along?" Jimmy John writes, Mark Austin told you in a 2015 interview on NBL that elites would consider depopulation via bioweapons if things got bad. Do you believe that's what COVID is, considering it likely came out of a lab? No, no, no. God damn it, how many fucking times do I need to answer this goddamn question? COVID did not come out of a lab. It came out of nature. It is not a depopulation agenda. There is no such thing as a depopulation agenda. because depopulation brings into play the aerosol masking effect. We lose aerosol masking, we all die. You really think that's what the so-called elites want, is to all die? I don't think so. Things are working out really well for them right now, and this depopulation bullshit is just gotta stop. It's just utter nonsense. So is that crap about COVID-19 being created in a lab. Justin asks, with Desiree as the asker, what is your favorite feedback loop to talk about? Or top 3? I don't have any that I like to talk about. I don't like any of them. I do this, I talk about and write about those feedback loops because I think it's my obligation to present information to people rooted in evidence. It's not that I want to. It's not that I want to have the human species go extinct. It's not that I want climate change to be irreversible. I took radical action to try to ensure that people, including myself, would survive a little bit longer. That was the point of the homestead in New Mexico, one of the points of the homestead in New Mexico, to show the way so that people would understand there's more than one way to live. The self-reinforcing feedback loop showed up in my life a short time after I made that move and pointed out to me the futility of my choice. So I don't like to talk about any of them. Mm-hmm. Celestial Woodway says, don't be dumb. I think that's my default setting, so don't tell me what to not be dumb. Governments usually legalize assisted suicide for physical pain, but not for physically well people who want to kill themselves. I don't think the United States government is ever going to legalize assisted suicide. It certainly hasn't so far. That's the incredibly rare exception, not the rule.
Too much money in.
There's too much money in keeping people alive, barely alive, through a variety of means. So I don't think anybody who is following the monetary system could possibly believe that depopulation is in the wings or assisted suicide. No, Jimmy John, there is not a lot of evidence it came from a lab. COVID-19 did not come from a lab. There is no evidence to support that idea. There's a bunch of people on YouTube University spewing nonsense as if it came from a lab, but there is no actual evidence that it came from a lab. If you have real evidence rooted in the peer-reviewed literature, please send it our way. Because I have real evidence rooted in the peer-reviewed literature that says it did not come from a lab. Coffee Dragon, do you support any radical ideas to cool Earth, change the sun, space umbrella, etc., as I've been pointing out for approximately 10,000 years, or maybe only 18 months? My work inspired Dr. Ye Tao at Harvard University's Rowland Institute to develop the mirrors reflection framework. And if you would please go to mirrorreflection.com. You'll find what I'm looking for. And in this case, mirror is spelled M-E-E-R. So mirror, M-E-E-R, reflection.com will take you to what I believe is the only chance we have of retaining habitat for humans into the very near future. And we're going to have to do a lot of other things too, and Dr. Tao understands that it's not a magic bullet. There is not this one thing that we can do that will preserve habitat for humans. No, it's a lot more than that. It's the mere reflection framework, and it's a bunch of other things as well. And that's a radical idea. I would strongly encourage you to take a look. Jimmy John, depopulation again is a stupid, ridiculous idea that nobody is interested in pursuing. Think about it. The elites are not interested in getting rid of the workers. The elites know about the aerosol masking effect. They do not want to lose habitat for our entire species, which includes them. They do not want to die while soaking in ionizing radiation as nuclear power plants melt down. They do not want to die, period. They do not want their children to die. I don't know how to make this any more clear, but I don't care how evil the people are. Anybody who is knowledgeable at all about what's going on in the world is not interested in rapid depopulation that would trigger loss of aerosol masking. There is no evidence to support that ridiculous idea. So let's just get over it, okay? We're not going to argue about it on here because it's a ridiculous idea. I'm not going to argue with people about flat earths. I'm not going to argue with people about a whole bunch of things. That's one.
But fairies are real.
Right. Fairies. Dwarves, not dwarves, elves. Fairies and elves are real. Orion, we don't know if we're going Mars or Earth. And we will never know, because our species will be extinct long before any of that happens. Kevo says, tell us about your move north. Did you get settled in? It's interesting. We're living now in an apartment that covers the entire footprint of the building. And it's directly over the realtor's office that we've been working with. And it's 1,000 square feet, which is approximately half the size of the apartment we were promised that we thought we were heading for. But the move went off relatively painlessly, all things considered. And we have made an offer that was accepted if we can just work through all the meanderings for a Victorian house about 2.5 miles from here in Pulteney, Vermont. So we look forward to making that move if we can ever get all the T's crossed and I's dotted for that transaction to occur. And send me an email message or send one to Pauline. We'll send some pictures your way. I think Pauline might have posted some pictures at the Nature Bats Last group on Facebook, but I'm not sure. In any event, we're reasonably well settled in, or about as settled as we're going to get. Bell Creek, Joe Biden's new ambitious climate plan. Real big step or just a hoax? Well, neither one. It's neither a real big step, it's a tiny step, and it's not a hoax. It's the kind of thing that had humans done 100 or so years ago, we might not be in this mess. But too little, too late. I agree with you, Kevin. We need to talk about suicide, and I've been talking about it and writing about it for at least 10 years. Jimmy John, you say you have peer-reviewed evidence. I don't see you posting it here, so I'm going to assume that doesn't exist. Jimmy John, you say you're talking slow kill, not fast kill, but slow kill is exactly what the aerosol masking people write about. They talk about 2100, loss of habitat for all humans, including children and grandchildren. Thank you, Nikolai Krastanov, for joining this channel as a member. Good point, Trish. Make sure to get a 30-year mortgage. Yeah. Working on as long a mortgage as they will allow. There are some rather tight regulations here in Vermont about the length of the mortgage and the size of the down payment. Nikolai, how bad do you think global warming is right now, and how to explain to my family that it's a bigger threat than COVID? It's a huge threat, significantly greater than COVID. I would encourage you to go to 2 essays at guymcpherson.com. They are on every page. It depends on whether you're on a mobile device or a laptop, whether they're on the right-hand column or the bottom. One is called Extinction Foretold, Extinction Ignored. The other is called Relevant Points for Interviewers. Either of them will indicate to you with ample evidence that we hover on the brink of extinction right now.
But should you hammer it home at them?
Should you hammer it home with them? I don't know. I don't know what to tell your family members. I don't talk to my family members. Oh, I can stop right there. Because they stopped listening to me years ago.
Something to think about.
And we post links in this chat very frequently, Jimmy John. So don't tell me you can't include links and you can't include other information that can lead us to links. And yes, 2023 gives ample time to enjoy. After all, it was a 2012 paper in one of the more conservative outlets in the peer-reviewed community. The paper, The Future of Arctic Sea Ice, came out, senior authored by Wisław Maslowski, and it appeared in the Annual Review of Earth and Planetary Sciences. And it projected, using a linear projection, that we'd have an ice-free Arctic in 2016 plus or minus 3 years. So the last year that was supposed to have happened according to that linear projection was 2019. And here we are, 2021, and it doesn't look like we're headed for an ice-free Arctic this year. And it didn't happen any of those 7 years under the projection or the consequent 2 years afterwards. So clearly we have dodged a few bullets. Will we make it until 2023? That'd be awesome as far as I'm concerned. If we come up with a way to extend our time even longer here on Earth, like say through the mirror reflection framework, I think that would be awesome as well. And I strongly encourage people to go to mirrorreflection.com and check it out. Do I know of any new research looking into the increase of nitrous oxide leading to ozone depletion and potentially the increase of solar radiation and heating? I don't. I'm sorry. And these questions give me an opportunity to look into the issues that I've been unaware of and create videos and essays in response. So please keep the questions coming. Thank you, Tammy Casey, for joining Nature Bats Last as a member of the channel. Now you can respond to Joey and keep him in line.
But people can help out with the mirror project. Tell them about the mirrors in Albuquerque.
So, Ariane writes, when settle into your new home in Vermont, are you going to be encouraging / hosting visitors under some Only Love Remains platform? I suspect so. We haven't had time to get through the current pandemics, so we haven't really talked about that. We'll see. I don't see why not. We have hosted many, many visitors in the other places we've lived. In Western Belize, in Pleasantville, New York, in the Orlando, Florida area until the pandemic broke out. And so I don't see why we wouldn't. Dan Browner asks, is Lyme disease increasing in the northeastern United States? I don't hear much about it in northeastern Washington. It's been on the rapid increase for many years, doubtless as a result of a warming climate.
I can talk to that.
And Pauline, who is afflicted with Lyme disease, from which one never recovers, can talk at great length about that. But she doesn't have the microphone. Nikolai asks, what do you think for this net zero carbon capture trees planting? For me, it's just bullshit to keep business as usual. Yep, sure is. We'll have net zero soon enough, as soon as all the humans are gone. Most of the talk about reducing industrial activity will lead to an increase in global average temperature. And so it could be that there are people who just don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of people who think that by, quote, conserving fossil fuels, they're doing the right thing because they just don't know. That's, I suspect, almost everybody in the United States and the so-called first world. These heat blobs have been growing in number, size, and intensity. Feedback loop? Yeah, probably so. I can't even keep up with the number of feedback loops anymore. And remember, it only takes one self-reinforcing feedback loop to ensure the irreversibility of climate change. And we've had plenty. All right. Pavlina? You had a suggestion for me. A while ago. I can't remember because it was a while ago.
Did you see Nikolai's most recent? The net zero?
Yes.
Okay. Did you answer that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I'm listening to you and this. Oh. Thanks.
I think we're going to wrap.
That's a little annoying.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. We've been a little over an hour now, and I'm intellectually and emotionally exhausted, as usually happens about this time of day because it's nap time for us old people. And it happens even more when I'm online trying to keep up with questions. So thank you everybody for participating. We'll try to put together another one of these in something less than a month that it's been since the last one, now that we are reasonably settled in.
I remember it was the mirror project. We're going to talk about where the mirrors are.
Okay, final comment. That's what I keep saying, final comment. There are a couple thousand 1 meter squared durable mirrors in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now, looking for a home or looking for somebody who will replicate the experiment that Dr. Ye Tao from Harvard's Roland Center is implementing in New Hampshire. So if anybody here is interested or knows somebody who might be interested, please get in touch, either with me or with Pauline. Our email addresses are widely known, or with Dr. Tao through the Mere Reflection platform. You can contact Dr. Tao by going to merereflection.com, and Mere in this case is spelled M-E-E-R, merereflection.com. So please, let's try to get this Mere Reflection framework off the ground. I believe it's the only shot we have at extending our run here on planet Earth. So I would appreciate your joining me in supporting that endeavor. Kevin, I did have a chance to look at the work Mark Bremble-Combs sent us, and I responded directly to him. I think it's good stuff. Thank you, Pauline, for typing in merereflection.com. Please, everybody, go there right now and offer your support and try to figure out how we can implement the project in or near Albuquerque, New Mexico, as well as in New Hampshire.
Is that it?
Thank you, everybody. We'll try to make another one of these happen within the next week or two, depending upon how our continued unpacking and move and trying to buy a house and blah, 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 depending upon how all of that goes. We look forward to another one. Whew! Thank you, everybody.
It's ripping my heart out, thinking of you, wondering how you grew so strong. I'm tearing your heart out, thinking of me, living so thoughtlessly, doing you wrong, doing you wrong. Doing you wrong, doing you wrong. My life out of balance, survival my call, never questioning what I'm turning into, fitting in this culture, my constant goal, all the lives I undo, doing you wrong, doing you wrong, doing you wrong, doing you wrong. You're slipping away now, out of my grasp. I've no idea how or what I've done. I can't live without you, baby. Hubris aside, I can't breathe without you, honey. There's nowhere to hide, and soon I'll find I can't run. Doing you wrong, doing you wrong, doing you wrong, doing you wrong. You're slipping away now, out of my grasp. I've no idea how or what I've done. I can't live without you, baby. Hubris aside, I can't breathe without you, honey. There's nowhere to hide, and soon